The Courage to Be Disliked by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga is a profound exploration of human freedom, happiness, and self-worth based on the psychology of Alfred Adler. The book is written as a dialogue between a philosopher and a young man who is frustrated with life. The young man believes people are shaped by trauma, that society is unfair, and that happiness is reserved for a lucky few. The philosopher challenges him at every step, presenting a radical idea. You are not controlled by your past, and you are choosing your life right now. This idea forms the foundation of Adlerian psychology, which stands in contrast to traditional trauma-based theories. Adler argues that people are not driven by past causes, but by present goals. In other words, our behavior is purposeful. We do not act because something happened to us. We act because our current behavior serves a purpose. For example, if someone says they cannot form relationships because they were bullied as a child, Adler would argue that the person is choosing isolation now because it protects them from rejection. The past may have influenced them, but it does not determine them. This concept, called teleology, suggests that we are goal-oriented beings. We create narratives about our past to justify our present choices. This is uncomfortable because it removes excuses. If trauma does not define us, then we are responsible for who we are. Yet this responsibility is also liberating. If we are not bound by the past, then we are free to change at any moment. We do not need years of analysis to begin living differently. We can decide to shift direction now. Another central claim in the book is that all problems are interpersonal relationship problems. According to Adler, feelings of inferiority, jealousy, anxiety, and even anger only arise in relation to other people. If you lived completely alone, you would not feel inferior. You would not compare yourself. Much of our suffering comes from competition and comparison. Society teaches us to measure our worth by being better than others, creating a vertical relationship structure where people are ranked above or below us. Adler proposes a horizontal relationship structure instead, where we see others as equals. When we stop viewing life as a competition, we reduce conflict and internal suffering. We no longer need to prove ourselves or defeat others to feel valuable. The book also addresses the deep human desire for recognition. Most people, consciously or unconsciously, live for approval. They work for praise, fear criticism, and shape their personalities around what others expect. Adler argues that the desire for recognition makes us unfree because it places our happiness in the hands of others. If we constantly seek validation, we become controlled by other people's opinions. True freedom, according to Adler, requires the courage to be disliked. This does not mean acting selfishly or cruelly. It means accepting that living authentically will inevitably disappoint some people. You can't control how others feel about you, and trying to do so creates anxiety and resentment. To support this idea, the philosopher introduces the concept of the separation of tasks. Many conflicts arise because we interfere in other people's tasks or take responsibility for outcomes that are not ours to control. For example, studying is your task, but whether someone approves of your effort is their task. Expressing your honest opinion is your task. How others react is theirs. When we attempt to manage others' reactions, we overstep boundaries and create unnecessary stress. By clearly separating tasks, we free ourselves from the burden of controlling what cannot be controlled. Inferiority is another theme explored in depth. Adler believed that everyone feels inferior at times. Inferiority itself is not harmful. It can motivate growth and improvement. However, people often respond to these feelings in unhealthy ways. An inferiority complex occurs when someone convinces themselves they cannot improve and uses their weakness as an excuse to avoid challenges. On the other hand, a superiority complex arises when someone exaggerates their abilities to mask insecurity. Both responses are rooted in comparison. The healthy approach is to stop competing with others entirely and instead focus on personal growth. The only meaningful comparison is between who you are today and who you were yesterday. A particularly powerful idea in the book is the rejection of the need to be special. Many people strive to stand out because they believe being ordinary equals being worthless. Adler challenges this assumption by suggesting that human worth does not depend on superiority. You do not need to be exceptional to have value. Instead, worth comes from contribution. When you contribute to others and to your community, you experience a sense of belonging and purpose. Contribution does not mean self-sacrifice or neglecting yourself. It means recognizing that you are part of a larger whole. This perspective fosters what Adler called community feeling, a mindset in which we see others as comrades rather than competitors. Community feeling is essential for happiness. Instead of seeking personal glory, we seek harmony and cooperation. Happiness is not the result of accumulating praise or achievements, but of feeling useful and connected. When you act with contribution in mind, you stop fearing judgment because your focus shifts outward rather than inward. You no longer obsess over how you are perceived. You simply act in accordance with your chosen values. Throughout the dialogue, the philosopher repeatedly emphasizes that life is a series of choices. Even unhappiness can be a choice if it serves a purpose, such as avoiding responsibility or protecting oneself from failure. This does not mean suffering is trivial or imaginary. It means we often cling to familiar pain because change requires courage. The freedom Adler describes is not comfortable. It demands that we accept full responsibility for our actions and attitudes. We cannot blame our parents, society, or past events for who we are becoming. We must choose our path. Ultimately, the courage to be disliked teaches happiness is not something granted by circumstances, but created by perspective. When we stop living for recognition, separate tasks, abandon comparison, and focus on contribution, we experience genuine freedom. Being disliked becomes less frightening because our self-worth no longer depends on universal approval. We accept that disagreement and criticism are natural parts of living authentically.